Here, at the Musée Picasso, is an exhibition focused on the single most famous modern picture painted by Picasso, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. This painting is repeatedly claimed to be the first modern painting of the 20th century.
Far more important, I think, is the fact that this painting has really two quite separate identities, even reputations. In the first place, it has a reputation as what might be called a highly expressive painting, a painting whose content is sexuality and violence. In the second place, it has a reputation as the work that opened the way to a movement which we think of as really quintessentially 20th century. I mean Cubism. It was essentially as a renewal of the language, the means of painting and sculpture, that Cubism was so important.
And what is usually picked out as anticipating Cubism in this painting is, above all, the treatment of the human figure. The figures are stylized, but this is not all. Those on the right, especially the crouching nude, seem literally to have been dislocated, pulled apart. One feature is pulled right out of alignment with another. This is the result of an attempt by Picasso to fuse into his depictions of figures views from varying angles, as if he, the artist, or they, the figures, were in movement as he conceived them. The dislocations of multiple viewpoints, along with another factor, the apparent flattening of space, were to be characteristic of what later, around 1908 to 1911, came to be called Cubist painting. Picasso moved into this kind of painting with Georges Braque as his ally. The Mandolin, painted by Braque in 1910, shows just how subtle Cubist art can be. It's very different from Les Demoiselles, quieter, much more difficult to decipher. The eye oscillates between hints of a mandolin and a jug, dislocated by multiple perspective, and a structure of glinting shards or planes scattered right across the picture surface. Many people, the British critic Roger Fry, for instance, thought pictures like this totally abstract. They only saw the structures of planes. And certainly it can seem, in a figure painting like this by Picasso, that the geometric structure of planes is antagonistic to any normal perception of the subject, and that eventually it must completely cloak the subject, take over. But actually, Picasso's and Braque's Cubism never broke with representation. What such pictures said was that painting is not a mirror held up to the world, but a language of mark and shape making, of structuring on a flat surface, whose means are infinitely variable, but which has a power to represent things grasped in space in all their complex solidity.
What then of its other reputation? I mean its reputation as an expressive picture which is about sex. Well, I think it's obvious that it is a painting in which Picasso uses these technical innovations we've talked about to give an added expressive charge to his figures. And at the same time, I think it's very obvious that this isn't simply a group of nudes posed for an artist. These nudes are presented as prostitutes who are on sale to us.
If one looks at the way Picasso developed the composition through suite after suite of studies, one sees how his response to women at this moment combined both fascination and disgust. In these studies, he never beautifies. He tends to brutalize. By removing two male figures from the painting, the medical student and the sailor, he focuses attention exclusively on his women. The effect of this is to heighten the confrontation between us, the spectators, and them. In the end, they engage us directly, eye to eye, on our scale, almost in our space. And they become not so much the objects of desire as the objects of mystery, terrifying, dangerous. This brothel is not a place of pleasure. It's a place of disease and death. These women are no less disturbing than the women of Klimt and Sheila. Finally, of course, it's clear that the brutality of Picasso's treatment of his nudes has a savage, a self-consciously primitive aspect. Once again, modern art and the whole range of so-called primitive arts right outside the post-Renaissance European tradition, are brought together discordantly, disruptively. Picasso confronts his own society with a savage alternative made available by colonialism.
At this time, Picasso was leading a bohemian way of life, sexually liberated, consciously anti-bourgeois. And yet, ironically, in order to survive as an artist outside the academies, he needed the bourgeoisie. And modern art would not have developed in the way that it did without the patronage of a rising and wealthy middle class, and without the network of art dealers which they fostered throughout Europe.
Picasso and Braque were taken up by a dealer called Daniel-Henri Kahnweiler. He was intensely interested in modern art, especially Cubism, and prepared as he was to wait for profits, he provided them with an income while he bought up all their work. Picasso moved to a new apartment on the Boulevard de Clichy and was able to hire a maid. Under such an arrangement, both artists could afford to ignore the huge public exhibitions of the pre-1914 years and dedicate themselves to their work alone.
They developed still more provocative Cubist techniques, inserting words and sticking on pieces of coloured paper and materials to make collages. Now, everything could be many things. A piece of newspaper could be a simple rectangle, or it could be red, or it could be cut to shape as a soda siphon. And anything went, from passages of drawing to scraps of printed or mass-produced rubbish. If this was art, it was as ephemeral as popular culture. Painting wasn't quite painting anymore. And indeed, Picasso even began to build his collages out from the picture surface to make a new kind of constructed sculpture, impromptu, flimsy, but deadly serious. These were developments that would show the Dadaists and the constructivists after 1914 how to question the conventions of painting and sculpture to devastating effect. And they enormously expanded the scope of Cubism. One could even read about international crises in Picasso's 1912 compositions. Yet the wider world remained a long way off, a distant murmuring in the background. Neither Picasso nor Braque were in any sense political activists, and neither engaged with the more spectacular aspects of the city around them.